You want to know how close I am to quitting my day job?
I'd assume very close. If you had any other line of to get money, even if it's like half of what you make now, probably just do it.
Well, that brings me to this part of the whatever I'm talking about. I started looking up freelance gigs again because, like you just said, if I had even half the money I make now, then maybe I would, not work there anymore. Well, with the freelance gigs, I was looking up there's a lot of places hiring, a lot of magazines like CBR, the comics, Looper was hiring, a bunch of them, and I was looking at some of the articles for their, because they require so much certain article experience or whatever. It was all stuff I know how to do, like I've done all of it before, so I was like, and most of them were paying $20 a pop, which for 600 to 800 words, not too bad. And I was like, well, I guess I'll, apply to Looper because that'll be like easy couple $100 a month.
Yeah, because you can pretty much talk about like anything on there, right?
Yeah.
They don't really have like like the CBR, like you kind of got
it's
like
all comic stuff.
Or you nerdy, wrestling.
I would like talk about that stuff too, just short articles. Well, when I went to, it wanted me to fucking sign up for Indeed, which I think I already have an account on there, but I was like, I don't want to sign in. I don't remember my password. So I just bailed on the whole thing, but it's just like, I was looking there, there's like different script writers and there's like so many things that people were looking for now, because I guess nobody's writing for money anymore. It just brought back so many bad memories of my freelance days of just like having deadlines for shit, and getting like shit stories or shit ideas forced upon me to write. It's like, hey, we want you to write about fitness in Finland. I'm like, oh, man.
What does that even mean?
It's like, I know this isn't going to be if your article, for anywhere I've worked, if your article goes viral, you always got a bonus. Well, when they assign you articles that are no matter how good you write it, they're not going to go viral. It's like, why am I doing this? I have to put so much research into this shit just for a garbage article. Now, I'm not saying Looper or CBR would be like that, or Bleeding Cool Comics even. But at the same time, I feel like the stuff I would have to write about, I would probably have to research, especially the comic stuff, because you don't want to just wing it. Like, if it's like, oh, what's happening with Batman now? Like, you have to actually go into detail. Like, I was reading some of the articles, and it's like so many sources linked. I'm like, I don't fucking want to do that. I just feel like if something's going to take you an hour to do or 2 hours to do, I want more than $20.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I mainly would just be doing it for the writing credits, because the one company I fucking wrote for, I had like 200, 300 articles on there. I was actually 2 separate websites on that one too, because they had like a sister site.
Oh, didn't they get bought out or something?
Yeah, they sold the site, and then the new owner did the biggest dickhead move I've ever seen on the internet. That's not true, but it was pretty close, because those sites had a lot, and I'm not going to name them because I don't want people to go to them and support it. They had a lot of traffic, and they had a lot of writers. They had fucking, just in like my short time there, maybe 100 writers, like staff writers, which is a lot. Granted, some were, a lot of it was just freelance, pay as you want, whatever works, and not everything was accepted. Yeah. My articles just happened to get accepted a lot, so like I said, I had like 300 on there. But whoever bought the company just immediately, just because it was WordPress, just deleted all the writers off there, all the contributors, everything. And then and fired all the editors too. And then I think he kept one editor, and you know what he did? Put his name on every single article.
Oh, wow.
And then I looked at like a couple months later, and he at least had the dignity to put fake names. He had 2 fake writer accounts that he would use. So now instead of just his name on everyone, it would be either like Dave or Jessica. I was like, what a fucking shit thing why wouldn't you just be like, hey, we don't need you guys anymore. We're going to kick you off the Trello. You can't write here anymore. Because it was like the way WordPress works, like if you're a contributor, you can't just edit random things, or, you submit work to DPW. Like you just submit it for review. You can't do anything else. So it's not like these people are going to be fucking spamming or breaking into your accounts or hacking anything. So you don't have to delete the writers. You're like, hey, we're not going to have you anymore, but you can keep your profile. Because wouldn't that make it look more professional?
And
if your site had, hundreds of articles written by various people?
And you never know. Like, how we don't need you now, but maybe 6 months from now, we might be able to use you.
I don't know what that guy's deal was, like what his fucking goal for the company. Because he paid, I think, $15,000 or $20,000 for each site. Seems like a lot. So, and then which I didn't like the guy I was working for anyway.
If anybody wants DPW website, 10 grand.
10 grand. That's fair. I'll take it. All stories included. So that guy, the original owner guy because he did the old bait and fish because I was waiting for somebody else. He's like, we were like your rent style. We'll pay you more, man. Come on. He just did, he was sweet talking me. I was like, I don't know. And I waited some months and then finally I was like, you know what? Getting a little tired of where I'm at. I'll try something because they had more traffic. They were a bigger place. Moved there, and then he just it was very strict. Because the other place, I was my own editor. I didn't have editors. But it taught me a lot about writing, especially online stuff. So I was happy I did it. But that guy was just such a dick too. And sometimes he just when he would pay you, but it was always you had to fill out your own fucking, Excel sheets or something. And it's just come on, dude. I wrote this many articles. Just send me a fucking check or something, or put it in my PayPal. You don't got to do all this. But he I don't know. He was like, oh, well, I'm going to think about starting another thing. Would you like to write for me on there? You could be the head editor. And I said, no, sir.
Nope.
Because I got buddies with one of the head editors, and he said it was a nightmare working for that guy. Having all that responsibility, because he would literally, it was a full-time job, but you're getting paid pennies on the dollar. So
I'd imagine that being the mid-tier manager.
Yeah.
At a store to where you have enough responsibility if something bad happens, it falls on you, but you don't have enough responsibility to actually change or do things the way you want done.
Be like a garbage shift manager job. We're a manager of a Family Dollar or something. But that was enough of a freelance, because I did that for a few years, and that was enough to just really sour me on the whole thing. So, and I couldn't, because there was a lot of jobs too I've seen over the years that hey, not the the New Yorker, but things like bigger publications hiring, and you look at the way they run now, the Huffington Post, it's all freelance, pay you $15 for this fucking ridiculously long article you have to write. It's you guys are a fucking $1 billion company probably. Why are you so shitty? You have these big, imagine Washington Post wants to hire you to write just as a freelance contributor, and they're just paying you $15. Meanwhile, their staff writers are getting $60 grand or something a year. It's fuck off. But even these startup magazines and stuff I inquired about, it was just a lot of it you could do from home, and then you have to go in for meetings and stuff. It's okay, so I could write for this magazine and get the experience, but I'm going to it's a startup. I'm going to get paid nothing. And then the way I always think, it's a fucking magazine. People buy magazines anymore.
Yeah, right.
No.
And then it's so is this even going to come off the ground?
Yeah.
And if not, what happens to it's one thing if you're writing articles for somebody, but if it's if you're trying to do a story for a magazine or something and it doesn't even get off the ground, it's well then that also puts your story kind of in a limbo, I would imagine.
Well, just the idea of either losing your work or the company just ends up firing everybody, which has happened in a lot of big publications. Even if you look at crack.com, they had for a stretch there were so popular that their ad revenue alone probably was crazy. They had a huge staff. They were making all these videos. They had all this stuff. And they actually had great articles. They end up getting they got to the point where people were reading some of their human pieces they were doing, interview people and stuff. And it was almost this could be something you'd see in the New York Times or something. This is a mainstream fucking article, even though it's crack.com. It's supposed to be a comedy website. And then, I don't know, I guess sales or somebody bought out the company, I think is most likely what happened. And you know how these guys, we got to maximize profits and, minimize the employees. So they fired almost everybody, got a bunch of interns and bumped them up to staff writers and,
without
paid them
paying
dog
them,
shit.
without paying them anything.
Yeah, or paying them diddly. And then it's just you got rid of your whole creative team. Now everybody hates crack.com. Now what they do is they just get, on Facebook, they'll ask, oh, what do you hate most about your job? Send us, and you send in why you hate the job, and they make a shitty photoplasty, a bunch of memes where it's why you hate your job, and they're not even edited, and it's what a garbage site. You can't even go on the website because there's so many ads unless you have ad blockers. So I feel anybody that's trying to get into even journalism for these newspapers and stuff, you just have to. It's not worth it. I don't think. I don't think being any kind of writer like that is a good career anymore. It used to be respectable, and now if you're hey man, I just got published in Rolling Stones, how many people are going to give a shit? That used to be where fucking Hunter S. Thompson worked. People were oh shit, Rolling Stones, they're doing big things. Oh, this is amazing. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, did you read that? Now it's the Rolling, aren't they a super liberal magazine or something? Nobody gives a shit. And that's pretty much like everything. Like the whole publishing industry, I think, is dying.
Especially like and as much as I hate it, I think like, with the magazine and stuff, that physical aspect
Yeah.
is always seem to be dwindling. I mean, like I like my I like my Kindle and stuff like that, but there's some things that I want to have a physical copy of.
I find more and more I just been buying more physical books lately because I don't trust Amazon to keep my shit.
True.
Because I've seen in the past they've wiped out people's whole libraries, thousands of books they bought, just wiped it out for whatever reason. And they don't really have to give you a reason, I don't think, because you sign a contract pretty much when you buy through them. And then I've seen other things where they just deem like a book is offensive or whatever it is, they just take it out of the library. So you might have bought a book and then all of a sudden one day it's just not in your library anymore. Like, what the fuck happened?
Without a refund.
No refund. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to do that. Like, and I know you can get like ebook. Like I got that Stephen King, all his stuff. It was from like a website that just sold ebooks. I don't know how legal that was. I mean, at the time, I still don't think you get a license to the whole collection, but I bought it and it works fine. It's all good quality, so you can do that. You can buy or find PDFs and do it yourself. As we've been experimenting with like random Conan stories or whatever, just seeing
Dracula.
Yeah, I sent you like a cheap one of that or something I found. Of course, public domain stuff's free anyway. I'm pretty sure you don't have to pay for Dracula, probably. I'm saying you can find these all online for free somewhere. Like Project Gutenberg has all kinds of things you can read for free, but it always comes down to I don't want to read on my phone or laptop.
Yeah.
And then you can send it to your Kindle, but sometimes the PDFs get wonky when you send them to your Kindle. It has to be like a Mobi file for it to work properly. But we're gonna.
That's the cold open, guys.
Cold open. I guess we'll find out what gonna talk about in an episode.
Maybe.
Start off kind of like a DBS.
We should just do an episode that's just a cold open.
The whole cold open.
Yeah, but like how it's like we'll close in on 15 minutes. A 15-minute cold open, and then like that's the end of the episode.
I don't know if that's a good idea, Spencer.
I didn't say it was a good idea. I just said it was a idea.
I am getting to the point now where I kind of don't care, so I might do that. No, we'll do it right because I have to pick a name for you. Gotta have a good one this week. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Liberian lesbian lingerie loner church. You're shaking your head. It makes me feel self-conscious.
This is going to get us in trouble.
No, you're just loaning lingerie to lesbians. What's wrong with that?
I don't know. I feel like somebody would be upset about that.
The Liberian Lesbian Linguist Church. Now you speak the language of lesbians. You're a linguist. Not good?
It's the lesbian part, I think, that people are gonna get upset.
The lesbian part.
I think that's the part that people might take.
Not the lingerie, the lesbian.
Yeah, I think they might get upset with the lesbian part. Consider how I'm not a lesbian.
Spencer, the Liberian Linguini Liquor Church.
Yeah, people will probably be less offended by that one, probably.
Why would they be offended by the lesbian one? Lesbians are real.
They are.
You saying lesbians aren't real?
No, they're real.
You saying they don't like lingerie?
I don't know.
There's lesbians that like lingerie.
I'm sure.
There's lipstick lesbians and chapstick lesbians. What's the difference?
Come on.
What? You don't know your lesbian facts. I can say that. I lived with a lesbian for a long time. A lot of lesbian friends. Leave me alone.
I'm not saying it'll be the lesbians that get mad. It's going to be the other people that get mad for the lesbians.
I hate that. It's like I hate when people get mad for other people. Let the people who are supposed to be mad get mad, not you. Random. It's always like some fucking heterosexual white girl that gets mad for everybody else.
I feel like her name's always Brittany.
Yeah, that's. I don't like it. You know what else I don't like?
No.
Say something.
Long awkward pauses that you have to edit out later.
Nah, I like those sometimes. It makes me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Fuck. We were supposed to do an episode about. We were talking about publishing. I guess we can continue talking about publishing if you want to talk about publishing. If you want to publish stuff and talk about publishing. We can talk about I forget what I watched. Oh, it was fucking It's Always Sunny when Dee and Dennis do their own podcast and they literally have nothing to say. So it's like, how about technology? Yeah, technology's good. Yeah, technology, it's a thing. It's happening. It's out there. It's real. What do you think about it, Dee? Oh, yeah, technology. Yeah, I like technology. I use it every day. It just like keeps going. It's like nothing. And then they get Rickety on there with this fucking, made him eat lemons. I wanted to talk about, we can talk about some indie publishing for a moment because we have a collection that's very close to being published, I guess. Because you finally submitted your fucking story that we waited 6 months for. So I have to edit that, see where it fits in the collection, and then I have to actually sort the collection because we have like fucking 20 stories in there. Whittle down some maybe. But once that's done, I'm going to be looking at paper prices. And here's something that some of you indie authors out there, I'm sure, have struggled with recently is the paper shortage.
Yeah.
I would imagine the price of paper has to be higher. If you go through Amazon, it might not be like the KDP or whatever they have now. I don't even know. I haven't kept up with it at all. But I hear a lot of people complain like Amazon's really cracking down on random stuff. So, say you have a title for your book that, like Dan Noakes, he had a Adam and Eve Bizarre Wonderland, some old comic he had. They took his whole bibliography off of Amazon and banned him from it. And they didn't give him a reason. Just said it was like something community guidelines or something he broke or something like that because like they wouldn't give him a reason and he had to call him. He did all this stuff and they still wouldn't reinstate him. And he just thinks maybe because like the Adam and Eve part has like sounded like another story or something with the title. He thought maybe they thought it was something else.
Well, there was also that, and I wouldn't know this, people would tell me, but there's that Adam and Eve like porn like production thing. So maybe like that was like maybe they thought
some big company, like that. Maybe they just doing like YouTube does, where they'll just like randomly ban or demonetize stuff just based on the algorithm.
Well, did you remember that Dragon Ball Z video guy that we watched a while ago, that Totally Not Mark? He had like those characters.
Yeah.
Like they literally almost just took down almost all of his videos, like 200 and something videos.
Why?
Because of the being, and I haven't like
for copyright stuff
and demonetization and things like
that. I know WWE does that a lot, where people have wrestling channels and they can't show the wrestling.
But there's also another like Dragon Ball Z guy thing that I want. Like he's doing like chapter breakdowns of like the manga when they're still in the Japanese form, as they're getting like translated and stuff like that. So like I don't, you know what I mean? I'm sure it's a lot of like who do you know as well. But yeah, like now, like in the past couple of days, he's had almost every one of his videos. He's like,
so his channel's pretty much dead.
Yeah, at least for now, it's like 2.5 years worth of work just down the drain.
Well, if you want to fight that, you have to fight each in every individual case. So every video you'd have to go and fucking dispute.
I was skimming through some of the comments, and one of the guys was saying like that other Dragon Ball Z channel that I watched, it was actually saying like I think it was like somehow he could like do like a chunk of them and stuff, try to get like a chunk of them reinstated. But yeah, that's ridiculous.
It really sucks too, because like if you go that way, how do you do movie reviews? I always wondered how the music review channels get around that, because like I'm sure there's a separate category you could put in. I know some of them still get their videos taken down because they play the music that they're listening to and they review it. You can't do that a lot of the times, like with movies and stuff, because they don't want you to show the clips.
And what I don't get is when people do that for people who are like positively talking about their product. I could see if somebody was just like, oh yeah, dude, I watched the new Dragon Ball Z movie and it was hot garbage shitty. And even if it was hot garbage shitty,
you could do that. They don't care if you do that. They just don't want you to like show clips and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
they don't want you to break down. I don't know. Yeah, it's dumb, but so going back to like the Amazon thing, there's like so many authors I've seen lately who's just like, I lost my whole, because it's not that they'll just remove that one book. But hey, you can't sell this book. We're not going to tell you why, but you can't sell it. Like it's like all your books. It's like everything. It's your whole account. And then you're banned for life too. You can't go back.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And for most indie authors, that's their main source of sales. Yeah,
because
Amazon.
If you get taken off of Amazon.
Yeah, then like also if you print through them, because I think that's what Dan had problems with. I think he had to find a new printer now. Like he couldn't print through Amazon because he got banned. So it's like, what the fuck?
Because I wouldn't be surprised if other like if Barnes and Noble and Books A Million wouldn't, like, if they was having trouble getting books, just wouldn't get it from Amazon. Like, you know what I mean? Just order it from Amazon themselves. Like,
they do. A lot of well, I don't know if they specifically, but I know a lot of bookstores actually get their books from Amazon a lot of the time. Or if they want a special order or something, they just get it off Amazon. Now, obviously, Barnes and Noble's getting a price cut from publishers if they get their books in bulk. But like, if they have like a specific book somebody's looking for, maybe they would. I don't know. I think at Barnes and Noble, if they wanted to fucking really fight Amazon, which they must just, well, they did get bought out by somebody who apparently knows what they're doing, but focus on indie authors a lot. Like these people getting kicked off of Amazon and shit, get them in there and sell their books in your store.
Right.
Why the fuck not?
Especially, too, you could do a lot of local things, too, like figure out where these authors are that are, like, if you're getting, a lot of traffic from certain authors, figure out where they live, gotta get in contact with them, and then you either make sure, like, their books are prominent in an area where they're from, because chances are
people will buy them,
and like signings or greetings, whenever things hopefully get back to normal.
I would wager at this point in time there's probably more indie authors than traditionally published authors, like new authors coming out.
Oh, and that's also that's a hard thing to measure, I think, right? Because just even like some of the authors that because is Nicholas Oberdgon, is he published through one of the big?
I thought he went through Penguin or something.
I don't remember.
Well, his books are international, so he has to be through a bigger publisher. Though I do wonder, because I've dabbled in the past when I was talking about writing a novel and stuff. I was like, now what's the move here? Would I just want to get an agent straight up? Probably. I think that would be the move. And then try to sell to one of the big four or whatever. But I feel the way things are now, it would almost be more beneficial to just skip all that and just go straight to a smaller publisher. I still want to get traditionally published. I wouldn't want to get nothing against indie publishing. I just don't feel like putting in all that work to market myself. I know you still have to market yourself a lot through traditional publishing. But I feel like if somebody's doing the book cover and the editing for me, that's going to be a lot easier than me having to do everything myself. And then I release the book and then I go, oh, fuck, I forgot. This one chapter, there's a fucking plot hole in it I never fixed. If you have a traditional editor, now you can hire editors, obviously, but that's expensive.
Yeah.
It's $1,000 if you want to get a good one. I think, and I'll ask you this too, you got a novel coming out. You don't have one, but if you did have one out, would you try to shop it to a smaller, probably more genre specific one, I would imagine.
Yeah.
If that's what you're writing. So if you're doing a crime fiction or something, you probably want to find a crime fiction publisher like this. So this hard case. What did you say that publisher was called?
Yeah, the hard case crimes novel.
So that's a small publisher for the hard. Yeah. So you'd want. I think that would be better, because since that's their focus, that's what their audience is already looking for to buy. Whereas if you go through one of the big publishers, even if they were actually behind you, you might get into all the bookstores and, that might be better for that. But at the same time, it's not like they're specifically going to be like, oh, this guy who wrote this hard case book, he's doing crime noir. Just throw him in with the lump. He's not a big name. He's a middling author. We don't really give too much of a shit. But if you go through one of these small ones, they're going to be like, hey, we're going to really push your book because that's what we do. That's our specific genre. It's our focus.
I always look, when it comes to the plan. Now, granted, it would, a goal and a nice thing to have would to be published by one of the big guys, and it would also help, getting the name out there. But the little bit of thought that I've put into when it actually comes to the publishing end, I personally think it's better to lean towards a smaller publisher, or paying for an editor yourself and stuff like that, and publishing it yourself. Because if you're going to a big author, big publisher, the chances are you're gonna get your paycheck, and if it sells, it's gonna have to sell a crazy amount for you to probably get anything else. It's probably gonna have to hit a cap, you know what I mean? You're probably gonna have to sell so many copies before you can get another kickback. To where if you go to the smaller publisher yourself, you're getting more of the revenue back, and it's maybe greater risk, but also greater reward.
Yeah.
Because in my youth, I've talked about this a lot. In my youth, I listened to ICP a lot, and whatever you may say or believe about their music or whatever about them, The one thing you can't say about those guys is that they did not put in the work, did not put in the hustle. You know what I mean? They did what they had to do, and like they got picked up by Island Records after a while. But then they eventually just made their own thing, slowly put together their own fan base. You know, that now pretty much gets anything that they put out.
Well, the thing about like for them and actual indie publishers is you get all the profit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a bigger risk, but also it's a bigger reward if it ends up paying off.
Well, I'm not exactly sure if the book industry does this, like the publishing industry does the same thing as the record industry, but like the way record companies work, if you say you got $1 million advance for your album, that means you have to make at least $1 million, or else you have to pay the money back. So whatever, so if the album makes $900,000, then you got to pay $100,000 back to them. So if you get like a $15,000, $20,000 advance on your book, I would assume that would be the same. So would you have to sell, so many copies would you have to hit a copy amount selling point, or would you just have to hit $20,000 and then pay them back?
That, or hopefully when everything gets back to normal, no paper shortage things, like a lot of things are like the print on demand.
Yeah.
So and then hopefully you wouldn't have to worry about that aspect as much. It's just,
I think going through like a small publisher when you're starting out would be a good move.
Well, and again, you're if you're doing that way, you're building up that fan base that you could hopefully, after a few years and a few books, it might even help you. Like, look, you go to a big publisher and they're like, well, we don't know, but it's like, look, I put out these 3 or 4 books, and I'm selling at least however many copies of it. You know what I mean? Hopefully good enough that makes them like, oh, well, maybe then if we give you a bigger chance, like a wider net, that you will possibly sell more.
The issue with the smaller publishers, one, probably not gonna get much money.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful too, because you don't want to do the whole vanity press thing on accident, where it's like, hey, we want to put your book out, but we need some money to promote it. And like, if you're paying anything, get out of there. That's that's vanity press. You're never paying to put your book out unless you're doing it yourself. If you're going to a publisher, they're paying. That's the point.
That's why they're there.
Yeah, but the few things you got to watch out for, and I've seen this with some author buddies of mine that kind of got screwed, is one. The big one is like the licensing rights. Which I think Paulie Cooley might have had problems with this with the Black series, right?
I think he still has like a year or so left before he gets the rights back to those.
Yeah, so
that's why he hasn't wrote it.
He did 2 books in the series, and then he doesn't have the rights, so he's not writing anymore.
And I think he's even like, I have them. I pretty much have them written out, but he's like, I'm not doing anything with them until I get the rights back.
And I don't know what his particular deal with the I forget the name of the pub, Severed Head,
something like that.
So I don't know how big of a publisher that was, but you have to be careful with the rights. Now, if you're doing one-off books, which is what I would do I wouldn't do a series with a traditional publisher unless they were or a smaller publisher, unless they were going to give me a lot of money.
Yeah.
I would probably just stick with like one book that's not going to be connected to anything. So, hey, I got this one book. And you have to remember, if you're doing that, you're not doing this for the money. Like you said, you're doing it to grow your audience and to actually have a book out on the market. And hopefully this company does enough in sales and has enough of an audience. That's something you'd also have to look into, is what their actual sales are. You would want to, or at least you would hope that your book would do decent through them. And even if you don't get any money off of the sales, really, that would make people want to read your work more. So even if you did go indie after that, or you went to a traditional big publisher, you're like, hey, my last book, did this many units with this small publisher, and I got this many, my fan base has grown. So they'd be more willing to take a chance on you if you're more unknown.
And also too, I think if you started out smaller press or self-publish, the mistakes, are kind of easier to learn. And because chances are, your first couple books, if you're trying to get them to a traditional publishing, they're probably not even gonna, you know what I mean? A thing in comics is, one that always asks questions like, oh, I want to get into comics. How do you get into comics? And it's like, you have to make comics. You have to show people in charge that you can either write a script that's on time, or, you can get the job pages.
You have to show consistency.
Yeah, that is something that you can actually do.
Quality and consistency. You have to prove that you have those two attributes.
So I'd imagine it'd probably be easier to do that on a smaller scale before you trying to go up to the big dogs.
Yeah. Now, with any traditional publishing, you have a lot of risk that you might not with indie publishing. It's like we talked about the licensing with the small ones. With the small publishers, you always run the risk of them just going out of business.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happens to your work. Do they still own the rights to the work if they're still like an LLC or whatever? Like they're still an actual business, even though they went bankrupt or whatever. I would imagine they would still own it.
For whatever the time period is.
Maybe they would sell it back to you, or maybe you just have to wait till it expires. That's always tricky. If you go with the big publisher, good luck getting your license back, probably. I would imagine those deals, you're not getting it back forever. But the main problem with those is, one, book deals. Everybody talks about, oh, if I could get a book deal, you get a 3-book deal or something. That used to be the dream, right? Here's the problem with the book deals. One, you're stuck. Like, you have to turn in these. Unless you want to have to,
give that money back.
Unless you want to give that money back and get screwed, especially if you spend the money already and you get sued and go to court. You have to get those books out on time. And 2, even if you do this and, like, say the first book's a smash fucking hit and you make it big and all of a sudden you're on Stephen King's level of people wanting to read your work, well, you are not going to be able to renegotiate your contract.
Yeah.
You're not going to get more money for your other 2 books you have to give them.
Yeah, because you're already locked in.
Yeah, so that $20,000 advance you got and whatever shit royalty percentage you accepted and, not having the movie or international or TV rights, like you let them have all that. Well, now you're a smash fucking hit. Netflix just bought your book to make it a movie. You're not getting anything.
You're lucky if you get to be a background character or make a cameo in it.
You'll be lucky if they let you write the script. Maybe then you'll get some money that way. And then you got 2 other books come out and they're smash hits, but you're not seeing a fucking dime from. Like that would be, in my opinion, one like. It'd be bittersweet because, you finally lived your dream, becoming a successful author. But at the same time, you're not making any money now. And you're probably working a shitty day job still.
Yeah, because, like, that $20,000, like, that's up front.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you get paid, like, until the next book.
Yeah, so you have to probably, if you're going with, like, big publisher, you want to get an agent. You want somebody to know what they're doing and be able to explain these contracts because they make them as convoluted as possible. You want them to be able to explain the contracts to you and be like, hey, you can ask to, get the movie rights or the Netflix or TV show rights or however that works. But, the money they're going to pay you for this is going to be way less now. Is that something you want to do? Personally, if I have confidence in myself and I'm trusting and I'm betting on myself, I would want those international rights, the movie right. I would want all the rights I can possibly get. And at that point, you're probably almost getting the book published without getting paid. Like, I would imagine they're not going to give you much money for it. And they're not going to push it at all then.
No.
They're probably going to be dicks about it. If you go through the smaller publishers, you probably don't have that problem. I think the main thing is just the licensing. Like, you don't have the rights to your work. And you're, like I said, off Jump Street, you're probably not making any money off of that. So I would still say if you're starting out, try to, small publishers, just build up a following if you can. Maybe if you have multiple books that you've written already, don't give them your magnum opus.
Yeah.
Send them like your fucking, pulp book you wrote or your small one, or even if it is a series, not the one you're super invested in, just one that you think people would like. Almost like what you would go with magazines. Is if you're submitting stories to magazines, like short stories, I would say most of the time, those aren't going to be the stories that you think are going to be the best stories you've ever written. Those are just like, okay, this will work for the magazine. I'll sell this. Because when you sell something, that's what you're doing. You're selling it. You don't own it anymore. So you sell a story to a magazine. You're like, all right, I'm willing to take a couple $100 for this story to be not mine anymore. That's pretty much what you're doing. So you have to accept that, and like in the book world, that's what's going to happen. It's like, hey, you're selling your work. It sounds dirty when you think of it like that. I'm selling myself. I'm selling my work, and that means that it won't be mine anymore. My baby that I spent years crafting and molding and forming and took such good care of, I'm just going to sell it to this person, and it's never going to be mine again. Which makes you think, like people who create, like, fine art, like paintings and stuff. Could you imagine if you painted what you think is your masterpiece, and even if you sold it for $10 million, like, it's not yours anymore?
Yeah.
That'd be fucking weird. So, Spencer Church, have you taken away anything from this bullshit session?
No more than normal.
That's good. Do you have any aspirations of publishing anything, like in any context? Like, hey, I want to my goal is, because I know you talked before, I don't remember if you talked on air about doing a short story collection or yourself.
Yeah.
Would that be self-published, or would you try to sell that to somebody, or?
I'm thinking it'd have to be either self-published or small, smaller press, but probably leaning at least to the self, at least at first, just, you know what I mean? Because also doing it yourself also gives you a good idea on if, when you go to a publisher's like, no, you don't have to do it that way. Like, I know what you have. You're just trying to, do it a weird way or trying to, wrangle money out of me or something, like, you know what I mean? So it doesn't help doing it yourself so you know the process and what you have to do, even if you're going to eventually have other people do it.
It's probably good to at least experiment with self-publishing, even if you don't have any aspirations to be an indie author. Just like you said, just to kind of figure things out and get the experience of doing it and how things work and stuff.
And the cool thing too is, like, I would imagine, like, if you're self-publishing yourself and, like, say you self-publish, your novel that you're working on,
right?
And then say, like, a couple years down the line you get a big following, I'm sure you could probably take that same novel,
you can sell it to
and sell, you know what I mean? So
because you own the rights 100%. They'll probably tell you, hey, obviously take it off the fucking market. Like, you can't sell it through Amazon or anything anymore. We're gonna sell it. Like, okay. That's always interesting, is people like Andy Weir, who just, like, had a book that they wrote, and then I think he just had his up for free online, and then it became a giant hit, and he sold it for lots of money.
Now he's like 3 or 4 novels deep now.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
That's who we should get on the podcast.
Probably could. I just feel dumb talking to him, probably.
I feel like such an idiot.
It's very smart. I have been thinking about getting more. I've been thinking about, we'll spitball this for 5 minutes or less. I've been thinking of ideas. This would be my own endeavor for a podcast. Since I got the fucking fancy, expensive mic, I might as well use it. I was thinking of different themes. True crime podcasts are very popular.
Yes.
I wouldn't do a fiction one where I create my own story. It'd just be like, oh, the Black Dahlia, and, go into that. Because I could also make YouTube videos out of those, too, with my, the podcast narration overlaid. Just on, like, static images. Not static images, like moving images and stuff. But I was thinking of that. I thought of one that'd be cool, be like Mythic Lands, where, each episode would be discussing, like, Middle Earth or the Hyperbian Age or the Lost City of Atlantis, things like that. I think that would be cool and be very fruitful. But I would like to talk to a lot of people, so I was thinking, this problem is it couldn't just be, it'd be more like a creators podcast, I guess, where we could get like how we got Nicholas Obron and Benjamin Cross and, like, different guests. I have a lot of people that have asked me, hey, if you ever need somebody on the podcast, I'd love to. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. They always think about it. But usually, because this is specific to writing, that could be, other stuff. It could just be anybody, and then you just have conversations about whatever, they're passionate about. It doesn't have to be writing necessarily. It'd be sculptors or different things like that. So I think that would be fun, too. So
yeah, because I think it also would help just seeing other people's process or how they do things, even if it's not in the same medium that you work in.
Well, that's what I'm always very interested in, is just people's creative processes. I love hearing about it. So, and I know if I do, I'm sure there's other people who would like to hear about it too, because a lot of times when I listen to different writing podcasts and stuff, the main thing I kind of want them to talk about is, like, what do you sit at a desk? Do you use Microsoft Word? Do you use pen and paper? Like, I actually like the gritty actual details of the writing process, not necessarily just like, oh yeah, this is how I get my ideas. Like, I don't really, like, come on. You're a writer. You just make shit up.
Yeah, we know where you get your ideas from.
You're a professional liar.
Yeah.
But, like, painters, graffiti artists, like rappers even, or musicians, like, there's so many. It's just, like, so interesting. Like, how do you get in the zone to write? Like, or how do you, when you're writing music, like, what do you go for walks? Just whatever stupid shit. But it's just, like, really interesting to talk to people about that. And I never really get those from podcasts. Like, sometimes they touch on it. People are like, yeah, I like to go to cafes and just kind of zone out. But then, so, like, the fucking meathead guest is always just like, oh, that's cool. So what kind of music you listen to when you write? And it's like, fuck off. I want to hear how this guy creates his art. So, Spencer.
Yes.
The Liberian Lesbian Liquidator Church.
Now that just sounds like a murder.
Ooh. Okay, can't be liquidating.
Yeah.
That's just the first word I thought of.
Isn't there a book you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, there is. I don't know when we're going to do this, but it's a very short book. This episode is dropping Tuesday, so if you look at last Wednesday, we had a Drunken book review from Ashley Hatter about the book The Gutter and the Grave by Ed McBain, and he gave it a 5 out of 5 whiskey shots, and his review really made me want to read the book, which is rare because usually I'm not influenced by reviews, even if it's from people I trust. But this, he made it sound so good. I picked up, me and Spencer, a copy that we will be doing a book of the month eventually. We still got to finish our Haruki Murakami, Elephant Vanishes. We wanted to read a Walter Mosley book for February. And we also talked about doing a book of the month for Colony, which is a big boy. I'm still saying March. Saying March for Colony. It's like, it's March 31 days?
Something like that.
I feel like we need a month with 31 days for that book. But anyway, that's all I had to say. Also, because we were talking about, small publisher, these hard case crime publishing. I'd like to look into that. I like the old pulp style.
Yeah.
I like old pulp books.
I like the covers.
I like old pulp books, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with writing pulp type of fiction. It's fast-paced and fun. Not everything has to be fucking full of melodrama and all this,
word salads.
Allegory for dumb shit. Not analogy, Spencer. Allegory.
Are you sure?
I'm gonna remind you of that every week until we fucking memorize that. That still makes me so mad. How do we fuck out of that?
At least you caught it before putting it out.
Oh my god, we would have sounded so stupid if we just talked about analogy. People, what is it? What analogy are they talking about? What are they comparing? How is World War II an analogy for Middle Earth? Like, that doesn't make any sense. No, Lord of the Rings was... it's not an analogy. If you listen to our Purple Prose episode, there's a correction. An allegory, people say, for World War II or World War I, and Tolkien disagreed very heartily. He doesn't like allegory. We so egregiously said analogy, and we just stuck with that through the whole conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we said that word so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Analogy. Fucking idiots.
No argument on this end of the table.
We want to get published. I could be the Joker if I had the ambition.
Maybe.
Not because of the laugh, just because
The murder?
Chaos. It doesn't have to be murder. It's chaos. So, anyway, folks, we check out... I forgot to do the whole outro. drunkenpenwriting.com. You can check out our work. You can go to Twitter at drunkenpenwriting, and Instagram and Facebook. You should follow us and like us at drunkenpenwriting. And let's see. Anything else? Do you have any parting words, Spencer, the Liberian lesbian lobotomist church?
No! That's worse!